Olivia Martinez always knew something was terribly wrong. It wasn't just sadness, it was as if her soul had been sucked into a black hole, leaving only an empty body that breathed on pure instinct. At 34, she lay on the cold floor of her Chicago apartment, staring at the stained ceiling for 4 days straight. The sunlight streaming through the dirty window felt like a personal affront, a cruel reminder that the world kept spinning as she sank ever deeper. The smell of spoiled food wafted from the kitchen. Dishes had been stacked in the sink for weeks, clothes strewn across the floor. Her phone buzzed incessantly with messages she didn't have the energy to read. It was Jennifer, her best friend. It was David, her brother. It was her mother. Everyone worried, everyone distant, everyone living in a parallel universe where people could simply get out of bed. But Olivia couldn't, not anymore. Depression had crept in, like a thief in the night. It began with sleepless nights after losing her job at the advertising agency where she'd worked for 8 years. Budget cuts, they said. Then came the breakup with Jason, her boyfriend of 5 years, who could no longer handle her ups and downs. The bills began to pile up, friends stopped calling, and then the deafening silence. What people didn't understand about extreme depression is that it's not just being sad. It's a physical weight on your chest that makes every breath a conscious effort. It's the inability to find pleasure in absolutely anything. Not the chocolate you used to love, not the music that used to make you dance, not the sun touching your skin. It's looking at your toothbrush and feeling like those few steps to the bathroom are the equivalent of climbing Everest without oxygen. Olivia had tried to explain this to Dr. Patricia Chen, her therapist, in the few sessions she managed to attend before giving up completely. "It's like being trapped in a body that no longer obeys me," she said, tears streaming silently. "My brain screams at me to move, but my limbs weigh tons. I want to die, but I'm too scared to die. I don't want to exist, but I keep breathing. It's a hell of contradictions." Patricia had increased her medication, Zoloft to 150 mg, added Wellbutrin, and suggested hospitalization. But Olivia didn't go. The pills sat untouched on the nightstand, next to half-empty glasses of water and crumpled notes with suicide prevention hotline numbers. On that particular Thursday in March, as she lay on the cold ground, Olivia realized she had forgotten what it felt like to feel anything other than emptiness. 3 years had passed since the downward spiral began. 3 years of struggle, of failed attempts, of false hopes, and brutal relapses. She was at rock bottom, and she didn't even know if she still had the strength to cry out for help. Olivia's apartment had become a mausoleum of abandoned dreams. On the walls still hung the paintings she had bought in a moment of hope, colorful landscapes that now seemed to mock her inner darkness. The bookshelf gathered dust from the self-help books she had tried to read in the first few months. The Power of Now, Controlled Anxiety, Mindfulness for Beginners, all marked on page 3, maybe 4, all silent witnesses to her inability to help herself. The brutal truth about extreme depression is that it convinces you that you are the problem, that you are weak, that other people can overcome difficulties, but you can't, that you are a burden to everyone around you. Olivia had internalized this toxic narrative so deeply that she now wouldn't even answer Jennifer's calls. Her best friend since college, the woman who had been by her side through every important moment, now received only the emptiness of silence. "You need to understand that it's not your fault," Jennifer had said on her last visit 3 weeks ago. She'd brought food, cleaned up part of the kitchen, sat on the floor next to Olivia, and held her hand. "This is a disease, Liv, like diabetes or cancer. You didn't choose this." But Olivia had just stared at the wall, unable to process words that seemed to come from another universe. David, her younger brother, had tried a different approach. He'd come across as strong and determined, talking about responsibility, about getting up and fighting. "Do you think you're the only one who struggles?" he'd said, frustrated after Olivia refused to leave home for the 10th time. He didn't understand. How could he? David had always been the resilient one, the one who turned obstacles into opportunities. He saw Olivia's depression as a lack of willpower, not the neurological prison it truly was. Dr. Patricia Chen had explained it in clinical terms: serotonin and dopamine dysregulation, amygdala hyperactivity, prefrontal cortex dysfunction. Your brain is literally working differently, she had said. It's not laziness, it's not weakness, it's brain chemistry. But knowledge didn't bring relief. Olivia knew the science behind her suffering, but that didn't make it any easier to get out of bed. The worst moment came on a rainy Tuesday. Olivia was in the bathtub, the only place she'd managed to drag herself that week, when she realized she was calculating how many pills she had, how quickly. Would anyone miss them? The cold water surrounding her seemed like a perfect metaphor. She was already too numb to feel physical discomfort. Why not stop the emotional discomfort as well? It was Jennifer who saved her that time. She had a spare key, and worried about days of no response, she simply showed up. She found Olivia shivering in the empty bathtub, clutching a bottle of pills, her eyes blankly staring into space. "Not today," Jennifer whispered, taking the bottle from her hands and hugging her tightly. "Not on my watch." If you've been following this story, and something here touched your heart, I want you to know one thing: you're not alone. Leave a comment below with what's impacted you most so far, or if you've ever experienced something similar. Your story matters, your voice matters, and when you share your experience, you could be saving the life of someone reading this right now, feeling exactly as Olivia did, invisible, hopeless, alone. If this narrative resonates with you, if you want to continue following Olivia's journey and discover how she found her way back to the light, please like and subscribe to the channel. This isn't just about numbers. It's about creating a community where we can talk openly about mental health, where no one needs to pretend they're okay when they're not. Your participation here is what makes this channel grow and reach more people who need to hear that there is a way out, that there is hope, that rock bottom isn't the end of the story. Because Olivia's story is just beginning, and what happened after that rainy Tuesday would change everything. That rainy Tuesday marked what Olivia would later call the moment of involuntary choice. She didn't choose to live. Jennifer chose for her. And perhaps that's what people in the depths of depression need to understand. Sometimes, survival isn't a heroic decision you make alone. Sometimes it's simply accepting the outstretched hand when you don't even have the strength to lift your own. But before I continue, I need to ask you a quick question. Are you feeling anything as you follow this story? If so, please like it now. It will help more people who need to hear this find this video. And subscribe to the channel, because the twist in Olivia's story will completely surprise you. Your comment, your like, your subscription are what allow this kind of content to reach those who truly need it. It's literally you helping save lives with just one click. Jennifer didn't leave Olivia alone that night. She called Olivia's mother, David, and together they set up a rotation. Someone would always be there. Not to judge, not to force drastic changes, but simply to exist in the same space, reminding Olivia that she still belonged among the living, even if her mind insisted otherwise. Olivia's mother, Margaret, arrived from Boston the next day. A 62-year-old woman who had raised 2 children alone after her husband's untimely death, Margaret possessed the quiet strength that comes from surviving the unbearable. She walked into the messy apartment, looked at her daughter curled up on the couch, and simply began cleaning. No lectures, no dramatic tears, just action. "You don't need to talk," Margaret said as she washed the piled-up dishes. "You don't need to explain yourself, but you need to eat. And you need to shower, and if you can't do it yourself right now, I'll do it with you." There was something in her mother's brutal practicality that cut through Olivia's fog. It wasn't maudlin compassion, it was tough, tangible, unbreakable love. Over the next few days, Margaret established a routine. 7 a.m. Wake up. Even if Olivia just sat in bed staring at the wall, she was awake. 8 a.m. Shower. Margaret would literally guide her to the shower, stand outside the door, and wait. 9 a.m. Breakfast. Toast, eggs, coffee. Olivia ate mechanically without savoring it, but she ate. Dr. Patricia was called for a house call, something she rarely did. But the gravity of the situation demanded. She brought with her Dr. Thomas Wheeler, a psychiatrist specializing in severe treatment-resistant depression. Thomas was a man in his 50s, with graying hair and a calmness that bordered on the supernatural. He didn't try to get Olivia to talk about her feelings. Instead, he explained clinically what was happening in her brain. Olivia, you have what we call major depression, with severe melancholic features. Your brain is essentially in a state of neurological inflammation. The neurotransmitters that should give you energy, motivation, and pleasure are critically low. This isn't a character flaw, it's a medical emergency. He paused, waiting for his words to sink in. And medical emergencies require aggressive medical intervention. Thomas proposed something Olivia had never considered: electroconvulsive therapy, ECT. The idea terrified her at first. Images from old movies of people being electrocuted, of permanent memory loss. But Thomas explained the modern reality. Controlled procedures, general anesthesia, and 70–80% success rates in cases like hers where medication had failed. I know it sounds scary, he said gently, but you've tried 6 different medications over 3 years. You've done cognitive behavioral therapy, tried mindfulness, changed your diet. Nothing has worked because your brain is in a state where these interventions can't reach it. ECT can reset, so to speak, the circuits that are stuck. David, ever the skeptic, researched obsessively. He brought up studies, statistics, testimonials. Liv, I know it's radical, but look at these numbers. Look at these people who were where you are and are now living again. There were tears in his eyes, the first time Olivia had seen him cry since childhood. I can't lose my sister. Please try. Jennifer held her hand during her first appointment at the treatment center. Dr. Wheeler explained the protocol. 3 sessions per week for 3 weeks, then reassessment, constant monitoring, adjustments as needed. Olivia signed the paperwork with trembling hands, feeling for the first time in months something other than emptiness. She felt fear, and surprisingly, the fear was almost welcome. It was a thrill. It was proof that something still worked inside. The first ECT session took place on a cloudy April morning. Margaret held her hand until the anesthesia was administered. I'll be here when you wake up, she promised, and she was. When Olivia opened her eyes in the recovery room, confused and headache-ridden, her mother's face was the first thing she saw. You did it, my love. First battle won. The first few weeks of ECT treatment were a blur of confusion, headaches, and fragments of lost memory. Olivia couldn't remember where she'd left her keys, forgot entire conversations she'd had the day before, and called Jennifer Jessica repeatedly. But something was changing, something subtle, almost imperceptible, like the first flash of light before dawn. In the 5th session, Olivia woke up and realized she had slept through the night. No more waking up at 3 in the morning with a tight chest. No more spending hours staring at the ceiling, trapped in endless loops of self-destructive thoughts. She simply slept. Margaret, sleeping on the nearby couch, noticed immediately. You seem different, she said cautiously, afraid to name the hope and shatter it. I feel less heavy, Olivia replied, and then she began to cry. But these tears were different from the ones she'd shed for the past 3 years. They weren't tears of empty despair, they were tears of relief. Mom, I could feel something more than nothing. I felt my body relax in my sleep. Margaret hugged her tightly, her own tears wetting her daughter's hair. Dr. Wheeler explained that she was responding to treatment better than he expected. ECT is helping to reset the brain activity patterns that were keeping you stuck. But Olivia, this is just the beginning. Now comes the hard part. You need to rebuild your life, one small step at a time. He prescribed a new cocktail of medications to maintain the gains. Effexor, Lamictal, low-dose Abilify, and, crucially, continued commitment to therapy. It was David who brought up the idea for the journal. Write, live, even if it's just 2 sentences a day. Write down what you felt, what you did, any small victory. Olivia thought the idea was silly at first, but gave it a try. The first entry was devastatingly simple. Today I showered alone. I managed to wash my hair. I felt tired afterward, but proud. Small victories. That became the mantra. Jennifer created a list of minimal achievements: getting out of bed before 9, brushing her teeth twice a day, eating a full meal, taking a walk around the block. Things that people without depression did without thinking, things that to Olivia seemed like insurmountable mountains just weeks ago. Therapy with Dr. Patricia gained new intensity. Now that Olivia was neurologically capable of processing, they dove into the real work. Depression has convinced you of so many lies, Patricia said in one particularly difficult session, that you are a burden, that you are weak, that you don't deserve love or happiness. We need to deconstruct these lies, one by one. Patricia introduced acceptance and commitment therapy techniques. It's not about eliminating negative thoughts. They will come. It's about changing your relationship with them. When your brain says you're worthless, you can recognize, oh, that's the depression thought, and then choose to act according to your values, not the thought. One morning, 6 weeks into treatment, Olivia woke up and felt something extraordinary. Hunger. Not just a biological need for fuel, but real hunger, craving specific flavors. She wanted pancakes with blueberries and maple syrup. The specificity of the craving made her laugh, a genuine laugh that surprised even her. Margaret, making coffee in the kitchen, froze at the sound. "What's wrong?" she asked, quickly entering the room. "I want pancakes," Olivia said, still laughing. "I really, really want pancakes." And then she started crying again, because wanting something, anything, was a miracle she'd forgotten was possible. Margaret joined her on the floor, laughing and crying at the same time. They'd made pancakes together that morning. Olivia burned the first batch. The next ones were perfect, and every bite tasted like rebirth. But Dr. Wheeler warned her, "You're getting better, but recovery isn't linear. There will be bad days. There will be minor setbacks. The important thing is not to see it as failure. It's part of the process." He was right. A week later, Olivia woke up feeling the familiar heaviness returning. Panic flooded her. "It's coming back," she told Jennifer over the phone, her voice breaking. "I thought it was getting better, but it's coming back." Jennifer came over immediately. "A bad day isn't a complete relapse. Remember what Patricia said? You acknowledge the feeling, name it, but don't let it dictate your actions. What's on your list today?" Olivia looked at the note taped to the fridge. Shower, breakfast, 10-minute walk. "Then let's do it, together." The 10-minute walk became 15, then 20, then half an hour. Olivia began to notice things she hadn't seen in years. The way the light filtered through the trees in spring, the sound of birds in the morning, the smell of coffee wafting from the neighborhood cafes. Simple sensations that had previously been blocked by the impenetrable fog of depression now began to return, timid but real. In one of their weekly sessions, Dr. Patricia introduced a concept that initially made Olivia resist: forgiveness. "I'm not talking about forgiving other people necessarily," Patricia clarified. "I'm talking about forgiving yourself. For the 3 years you lost, for the relationships that fell apart, for the work you left behind, for the person you think you should be but couldn't be. "How do I forgive 3 years of waste?" Olivia asked, bitterness tinging her words. "How do I accept that I lay on the floor while my life fell apart? While Jennifer built her career, while David married Emma, while everyone else moved on?" Patricia leaned forward. "You weren't wasting time, Olivia. You were surviving a disease that kills thousands of people every year. You were fighting an invisible battle that consumed all your energy just to keep breathing. That's not waste, that's raw survival." The words sank deeper than Olivia expected, and she allowed the tears to come. Not of pain this time, but of something closer to acceptance. The financial situation was brutal. 3 years without consistent work, medical bills piling up, savings evaporating. Margaret had covered many expenses, but Olivia knew she couldn't rely on her forever. The thought of looking for a job terrified her. How would she explain the gap on her resume? How would she assure employers that she wouldn't fall apart again? It was Jennifer who suggested something different. What if you didn't go back to advertising? What if you did something that really matters to you? They were having coffee at a small establishment near the apartment, the first time Olivia had felt comfortable enough to be in public for more than a few minutes. "What did you love doing before all this happened?" Olivia thought for a long moment. "I used to write, poetry mostly, and I volunteered at a homeless shelter before I got the job at the agency." She paused, surprised by her own memory. "I'd completely forgotten about that." "Then maybe it's time for a reminder," Jennifer said softly. She pulled out her laptop. "Look, there's a training program for mental health counselors. It's 6 months. You have lived experience that can help others, and there are need-based scholarships available." The idea was both terrifying and thrilling. Olivia, who had barely been able to help herself months ago, helping others. It seemed presumptuous, but it also felt right. "What if I'm not strong enough?" she asked. "What if I'm too broken to fix others?" "You're not going to fix anyone," Jennifer replied. "No one fixes anyone, but you can be there for them. You can say, 'I know what that dark place is like because I've been there.' You can be living proof that it is possible to climb out of the depths of despair." Olivia applied that night, her hands shaking as she typed her personal story into the application form. 2 weeks later, she was accepted with a full scholarship. The program would begin in June. She had 2 months to prepare. Dr. Wheeler adjusted her medications again, finding a balance that offered stability without the numbness that previous doses caused. "You're doing a remarkable job, Olivia," he said. "Few patients make such consistent progress after ECT. But remember, stay on medication, stay on therapy. There's no such thing as cured depression. There's only in remission, and maintaining remission requires constant vigilance." David and his wife, Emma, invited her to dinner. The first time Olivia had felt able to socialize in a family setting. The evening was strangely normal. They talked about politics, about Emma's baby, about the kitchen renovation they were planning. And Olivia joined in. She laughed. She offered her opinion. For a few hours, she was just a person having dinner with family, not a psychiatric patient struggling to survive. On the way home, driving with Margaret by her side, Olivia felt something surprising. Gratitude. Not for the depression. She would never be grateful for suffering, but for the depth it had brought, for the ability to appreciate small moments she had previously taken for granted, for the fierce love of people like Jennifer, Margaret, and David, who didn't give up even when she had given up on herself. The first day of the counselor training program arrived with a mix of paralyzing anxiety and nervous excitement. Olivia woke at 5 in the morning, 2 hours early, unable to go back to sleep. She stood in front of her closet for 20 minutes, changing her clothes 3 times, until Margaret knocked on the door. "You look beautiful. Now breathe and go show these people who you really are." The training center was housed in a renovated building in downtown Chicago, its walls painted in calming shades of blue and green. There were 12 people in the group, a mix of ages, races, and backgrounds. The instructor, an African-American woman named Rebecca Thompson, had the kind of presence that simultaneously calmed and commanded respect. "Welcome," she said at the opening. "You are not here to learn how to save people. You are here to learn how to walk alongside them as they save themselves." In the first round of introductions, each person briefly shared what brought them there. There was Kevin, an Afghanistan veteran with severe PTSD, Maria, who had lost a son to suicide 2 years earlier, James, a former heroin addict with 5 years clean, Sophia, who had survived an abusive relationship that nearly killed her. When Olivia's turn came, her voice trembled. "I spent 3 years at the bottom of a pit called depression, and I'm here because someone reached out and pulled me out. Now I want to be that hand for others." The training was intense. Basic psychology, active listening techniques, crisis recognition, professional boundaries, self-care to avoid burnout. But there was something deeper happening in that group. Everyone there understood pain viscerally. It wasn't abstract theory, it was knowledge etched into the skin, the bones, the soul. They formed an instant bond, the kind only possible between people who have stared into the abyss and come back. Kevin became an unlikely friend. During breaks, they would talk about their respective personal hells. "The worst thing about depression," Olivia shared one day, "is that people can see your wounds and still not believe you're bleeding." Kevin nodded. "It's similar with PTSD. No one sees the bombs going off in your head every night. They just see you jumping at loud noises and call you crazy." But recovery wasn't a straight line upward, as Dr. Wheeler had warned. In the 3rd week of the program, Olivia had what Patricia would later call a minor depressive episode. Not as severe as the previous years, but frightening enough. She woke that Saturday feeling the familiar heaviness returning, the distorted thoughts whispering their familiar lies. "You're pretending to recover. You'll fail. You always do." Panic consumed her. She called Jennifer at 7 in the morning, crying. "It's coming back, Jen. I knew it was too good to be true. I knew I couldn't keep this up." Jennifer, now experienced in these crises, kept her voice calm. "Liv, listen. You're having a bad day, not a full-blown relapse. This is different. You have tools now. Use them. What did Patricia teach you about negative automatic thoughts?" Olivia took a deep breath, forcing her brain to work through the fog. Identify the thought. Question the evidence. Seek alternative interpretations. She began writing. Thought, "I'm going to fail." Evidence, "I'm having a hard day." Alternative interpretation, "A hard day is normal in recovery and doesn't mean all my progress is gone." The exercise helped, but it didn't completely eliminate the feeling. Olivia spent the weekend doing the basics, showering, eating, walking, and taking her medication on time. She skipped Emma's birthday party. She canceled lunch with Margaret, but she didn't break down. And on Monday, when she returned to training, she shared her experience with the group. "I had a horrible weekend," she said during her morning check-in. "I thought I was completely regressing, but I realized something. 3 years ago, a bad day would destroy me for months. Now a bad day is just a bad day. I made it through. And here I am today." Rebecca smiled. "That, Olivia, is real growth. It's not about never falling. It's about shortening the time between falling and getting up." Maria, the mother who had lost her son, hugged Olivia after the session. "You have no idea how important that was to hear today. I felt exactly like that yesterday, like all my progress was an illusion. Thank you for being honest." Olivia realized something profound in that moment. Her vulnerability wasn't weakness. It was a bridge. It was connection. It was what allowed others to feel less alone in their own struggles. The program included supervised internships in various settings: psychiatric hospitals, suicide prevention hotlines, community support groups. Olivia chose to do her first internship at the suicide prevention hotline. "Are you sure?" Rebecca asked. "It's intense, especially for someone with your history." But Olivia was right. "I need to do this. I need to be on the other end of that line. I never had the courage to call when I should have." The first night on the suicide prevention hotline shift was terrifying. Olivia sat in the small booth, headset on, staring at the phone as if it were a bomb about to explode. Beside her was Rachel, a 10-year veteran who would be her supervisor. "Breathe," Rachel said gently. "You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to be present. You just have to listen." The first call came at 8:37 p.m. A man, his voice cracking, said he had a gun in his hand and saw no reason to continue. Olivia's heart raced, but she forced her voice to remain calm. "My name is Olivia. I'm here with you now. Can you tell me your name?" Silence for several seconds, then, "Robert. My name is Robert." For 43 minutes, Olivia talked to Robert. He was 52 years old, had lost his job, his wife had filed for divorce, his adult children no longer spoke to him. "I messed up," he repeated. "Everyone would be better off without me." Olivia recognized every word. They were echoes of her own thoughts just months ago. "Robert, I know what this place feels like. I've been exactly where you are now." She shouldn't have shared this. Protocol discouraged excessive self-disclosure, but something in her knew Robert needed to hear it. 6 months ago, I was clutching a bottle of pills, convinced the world would be better off without me. And I was wrong. So completely wrong. She heard Robert sob on the other end. "How did you get out of there?" he asked, his voice breaking. "How did you get back?" "One tiny step at a time," Olivia replied. "And with help. Lots of help." "Robert, you called this line. That means a part of you still wants to live. Let's work with that part." With Rachel silently guiding him through written notes, Olivia helped Robert create an immediate safety plan. Stashing the gun in the neighbor's car, calling his brother who lived 20 minutes away, scheduling an emergency psychiatric evaluation for the next morning. When the call ended, Olivia was shaking. Rachel pulled her into a hug. "You did an incredible job. You saved his life tonight." But Olivia didn't feel like a hero. She felt exposed, as if her chest had been ripped open and her ugliest scars exposed. And at the same time, she felt useful, needed, as if all the suffering she'd endured had suddenly gained purpose. The subsequent calls were equally intense. A 16-year-old girl being bullied at school to the point of plotting her own death. A 34-year-old man struggling with opioid addiction and recurring suicidal thoughts. A 68-year-old woman, recently widowed, who saw no reason to go on without her husband of 45 years. Each story was unique, each pain was real, and Olivia found that her own experience with extreme depression gave her a credibility no training could provide. But the work also took its toll. 3 weeks into her internship, Olivia began having nightmares again, not about her own depression, but about the people she treated. She would wake up at 3 a.m., wondering if Robert had actually gone for psychiatric evaluation, if the teenager was still alive, if the addicted man had relapsed. Dr. Patricia warned her during a session, "You're absorbing other people's trauma. We need to work on your boundaries and self-care, or you'll burn out quickly." Patricia introduced compartmentalization techniques, rituals to leave work at work. Olivia began taking 30-minute walks after each shift, listening to calming music, consciously releasing the stories she'd carried for hours. She resumed writing in her journal, but now not just about her own journey, but about what she was learning from witnessing the pain of others. One particularly revealing entry read, "I used to think my depression was unique, that no one could understand the depth of my suffering. But now, listening to dozens of people at their worst, I realize that human pain is simultaneously universal and deeply personal. We all feel alone in the dark, but the dark is full of others like us, searching for a light, for a hand, for a voice that says, "I see you." Kevin from the training program was also interning in the same prevention program on different shifts. They started meeting up afterward to decompress. "How do you handle your weight?" Olivia asked one night over pizza at a nearby restaurant. Kevin thought for a moment. "I remember that every call I answer is someone who chose to fight. They called. That's already a victory. And if I can help them fight for one more day, then my own hell was worth it." The next phase of training included working with in-person support groups. Rebecca assigned Olivia to co-facilitate a depression group for young adults. "You have the lived experience and are developing clinical skills. It's the perfect combination," Rebecca explained. But Olivia was nervous. The phone was one thing, you never saw faces. But being in the same room, seeing people's eyes break the way yours did. The first group met on a Thursday night. 8 people between the ages of 22 and 35, all struggling with severe depression. Olivia introduced herself honestly. "I'm not here as someone who has overcome depression. I'm here as someone who is learning to live with it, to manage it, to not let it define my entire existence." A young woman named Ashley, with sunken eyes and fresh scars on her wrists, whispered, "Finally, someone who understands." The support group became the heart of Olivia's recovery journey, not just for the participants, but for herself. Every Thursday night, those 8 people gathered in an imperfect circle of folding chairs, sharing their invisible struggles. There was Ashley, the 24-year-old with scars on her wrists. Brandon, a medical student who had withdrawn from his program after 3 suicide attempts. Nicole, a single mother of 2 who struggled to get out of bed every morning. And others, each carrying their own impossible burden. What surprised Olivia was how facilitating the group helped her as much as it helped the participants. When Brandon said, "I feel like a complete failure," Olivia saw her own reflection from months ago. When Ashley confessed, "I can't feel anything but emptiness," Olivia remembered the hours on the cold floor of her apartment, and by helping them challenge these thoughts, she reinforced her own tools for recovery. "Depression lies," she often told the group. "It's the most convincing liar you'll ever meet. It tells you you're a burden, that no one cares, that you won't get better. And it sounds so true that you believe it. But they're lies, neurochemical lies." Nicole began to cry during one of these speeches. "But what if it's true? What if I really am a burden to my children?" Olivia knelt beside Nicole's chair. "Your children have a mother who is battling a terrible disease and yet shows up for them every day. That's not a burden, that's strength. You're teaching them that when life gets tough, we don't give up. We seek help. We keep trying." Nicole squeezed Olivia's hand, and in that moment, Olivia felt something solidify within her. Purpose. Her suffering hadn't been in vain if it could be transformed into a bridge for others. But the journey had more layers of complexity. Margaret had to return to Boston. She had her own life, her own job. The idea of living alone again terrified Olivia. "What if I go back to that place?" she confessed to Jennifer. "What if without my mom here, I fall apart again?" Jennifer was blunt. "So you call me, or Patricia, or the crisis line. But Liv, you're not the same person anymore. You have tools now. And most importantly, you know you can ask for help." The first week alone was difficult. The apartment felt too big, too quiet. Olivia would wake up in the middle of the night with panic attacks, certain that her depression would return with a vengeance. But she applied the techniques, deep breathing, challenging catastrophic thoughts, calling her support network. And slowly, very slowly, she began to trust her own ability to stand on her own 2 feet. Dr. Wheeler gradually reduced the frequency of appointments from weekly to bi-weekly, then monthly. "You're stable, Olivia. But always remember, depression is a chronic condition for many people, like diabetes or hypertension. You'll probably be on medication for the rest of your life. And that's okay. It's not weakness, it's intelligent management of a medical condition. The words were liberating in a strange way. She didn't need to be cured to be well. She just needed to be managing. Kevin invited her to speak at a mental health awareness event for veterans. You have a powerful story, Liv, and these people need to hear that recovery is possible. Olivia was terrified. Talk about her depression to an auditorium full of strangers, expose her darkest parts publicly? But Kevin insisted. You talk to people on the crisis line every week. You facilitate a group. This is just on a larger scale. The auditorium held about 100 people when Olivia took the stage. Her hands trembled as she held the microphone. She began, "My name is Olivia Martinez, and 8 months ago I was lying on the floor of my apartment, wishing I had the courage to die." The silence in the room was absolute. "I'm here today, not because I'm strong, not because I overcame depression, but because I accepted help when I was convinced I didn't deserve it." For 20 minutes, Olivia shared her story, the brutal details we usually hide, the cold tub, the bottle of pills, Jennifer finding her, the ECT, the small victories, the bad days that still lay ahead. And when she finished, the room erupted in applause. But what struck her most was what came afterward. Dozens of people approaching, some with tears in their eyes, saying, "This is my story too," or "Thank you for making me feel less alone." A man in his 40s, wearing a veteran's jacket, waited until everyone else had left. "I came here tonight with a plan," he said quietly. "I had everything organized, letters written, but listening to you, I think I can try one more day, just one more." Olivia felt tears streaming down her face. She took a card with crisis resources and placed it in his hand. "One day at a time, that's all we need. And please call this number now, promise?" He promised, and he called, right there, in front of her. Olivia stood by while he spoke to the crisis line operator, while he agreed to go in for an emergency evaluation. Kevin drove the man to the nearest hospital, and Olivia stood in the empty parking lot, staring up at the Chicago night sky, and realized she had been through hell, and now she was using her scars as maps to guide others through the flames. 6 months after starting the training program, Olivia graduated as a certified mental health counselor. The ceremony was small, just the 12 people from the original group and their families, but it meant more to her than any previous achievement in her life. Margaret flew in from Boston. David and Emma brought their newborn baby, Lucas. Jennifer was in the front row, crying openly, and when Rebecca handed Olivia the certificate, she whispered, "You have transformed your greatest wound into your greatest strength. That is rare and precious." Olivia's first professional position was at a community mental health center on Chicago's South Side, an area where resources were scarce and the need was immense. She would work primarily with young adults and low-income families, many dealing not only with depression but also with trauma, poverty, violence, and lack of access to adequate care. The pay was modest, but Olivia didn't mind. For the first time in years, she had a purpose beyond simply surviving. Her first client was a 19-year-old girl named Crystal, who had been sexually abused by her stepfather and developed severe depression and suicidal tendencies. Crystal entered the office with her arms crossed, her expression defiant, her walls up. "You won't understand me," she said before Olivia could even speak. "No one does." Olivia recognized that defense. She had used the same armor herself. "You're right," Olivia replied calmly. "I've never lived your specific story, but I know what it's like when the pain is so great you can't see a way out. I know what it's like to feel too broken to be fixed." Crystal eyed her suspiciously. "You? You seem perfectly fine." Olivia made a decision in that moment, one that went against some therapeutic conventions, but one that her instincts told her was necessary. 3 years ago, I spent 4 days lying on the floor of my apartment, unable to move. My best friend found me in a bathtub, holding enough pills to kill me. I had electroconvulsive therapy because my brain was so broken that normal medicine no longer worked. Crystal blinked, her tough facade cracking slightly. "Really?" Olivia nodded. "Really? And I still take medication every day. And I still have bad days. But I'm here. And so are you. And that counts for a lot." Working with Crystal was long and difficult. There were weeks when she wouldn't show up for sessions. There were times when she tested Olivia, pushing boundaries, saying shocking things to see if Olivia would reject her like everyone else. But Olivia remained firm, consistent, present. "I won't give up on you, even when you give up on yourself," she would say. And slowly, very slowly, Crystal began to trust. But even as she helped others navigate their own darkness, Olivia faced her own ongoing challenges. There was a day, 9 months after her initial recovery, when she woke up feeling the old, familiar heaviness. For no apparent reason, no clear trigger, just brain chemistry working its cruel tricks. Panic flooded her. "Not again, please, not again." But this time she knew what to do. She didn't fight the feeling. She acknowledged it. "Oh, you're back. A down day, okay." She didn't cancel her work commitments, but she adjusted her expectations. She let Jennifer know. "Having a rough day, just wanted to let you know." She increased her self-care, longer walks, more nutritious meals, extra sleep. And crucially, she didn't panic. Because now she knew that one bad day didn't mean months of relapse. It just meant one bad day. Dr. Patricia was impressed with how Olivia handled the episode. "Do you see the difference? Before, a depressive day would send you into a catastrophizing spiral. Now you treat it as a manageable symptom. That's profound emotional maturity." But Patricia also warned her about something new: vicarious depression. You're absorbing traumatic stories all day long. This can reactivate your own trauma. You need to be vigilant about boundaries. Olivia began working with a clinical supervisor, a man named Dr. Harold Martinez, no family relation, who had worked in community mental health for 20 years. Harold was direct and wise. "You can't save everyone, Olivia. Some clients won't get better. No matter how hard you try, some will relapse, some will die, and you need to make peace with that, or this work will destroy you." The words were harsh, but necessary. Olivia had become overly emotionally invested in each client. She carried their pain home, dreamed of their stories, woke up worrying if they were okay. Harold taught her techniques of sustainable compassion, how to care deeply without losing herself in the process. Empathy with boundaries isn't selfish, it's professional survival. Jennifer noticed changes in Olivia beyond emotional stabilization. "You seem more like yourself," she commented over lunch. "Not the pre-depression you, but a deeper version. Like the fire burned away the superficial parts and left only the essentials." Olivia considered this. "I think it's true. I lost a lot. Years, relationships, opportunities. But I gained clarity about what really matters. And that's priceless." David surprised her with an invitation to be Lucas's godmother. "You've been through hell, Liv, but you came back. And I want my son to grow up knowing that his aunt is one of the strongest people I know." Olivia held the baby on the day of his christening, tears streaming silently, thinking of how a year ago she was convinced the world would be better without her. And now she held new life, representing hope for this child. A year and a half after that devastating Thursday, when she lay on the cold floor of her apartment, Olivia returned to that same place, not to live, but to say goodbye. She had found a new apartment, smaller, sunnier, closer to work. While packing her things, she found the old diary with those painful entries from the darkest days. Today, I no longer want to exist. There is no way out. I am a burden to everyone. She sat on the floor, the same floor where she had spent days lost, and read the pages with a mixture of compassion and sadness. That woman seemed like a stranger now, someone she knew intimately but no longer inhabited. Olivia picked up a pen and wrote a final entry in that journal. To the Olivia who wrote these pages, you survived. You are on the other side now. And though the scars remain, they no longer define you. They strengthen you. I forgive you. I love you, and I promise to honor your struggle by living fully. At the community center, Olivia now facilitated 3 different groups and worked with 15 individual clients. Crystal had made significant progress. She was enrolled in a GED program, working part-time, and had gone 2 months without suicidal ideation. "You saved me," Crystal said in one session. Olivia shook her head gently. "No, Crystal, you saved yourself. I just held the flashlight while you found your own way." Ashley, from the original support group, was also blossoming. She had started making art again, vibrant, emotional paintings about grief and recovery. She invited Olivia to her first exhibition at a small gallery. The canvases were brutally honest, one depicting a body submerged in dark water with a single hand extended toward the light, another depicting a broken heart being stitched together with gold thread, emotional kintsugi. "You taught me that our cracks can be our beauty," Ashley explained. Rebecca offered Olivia a position as an assistant trainer in the next cycle of the counselor program. "You have a rare gift. You combine lived experience with genuine clinical skills. Future counselors need to learn from someone like you." Olivia accepted, thrilled with the opportunity to give others what the program had given her. Hope transformed into purpose. But the most unexpected part of Olivia's recovery came in the form of a romantic connection. She met Daniel at a community mental health event. He was a public school literature teacher volunteering his time. They started talking about poetry, and the connection was immediate. Olivia was hesitant at first, remembering her relationship with Jason, which had crumbled under the weight of her depression. "What if I have another episode?" she confessed to Jennifer. "What if I scare him away too?" Jennifer was wise as ever. "Then you'll have been honest about who you are from the beginning, and if he can't handle it, better to find out early. But Liv, you're not that person who couldn't get out of bed anymore. You have tools, you have support, you know how to manage your condition." On their second date, Olivia was blunt with Daniel. "I live with chronic depression. I take medication. I go to therapy. There will be bad days. You need to know that about me." Daniel listened carefully and then shared his own story. His brother had died by suicide 5 years earlier. "I know how real depression is. I know it's not weakness, and I admire your courage in seeking help and using your experience to help others." They took things slowly, building a foundation of honesty and open communication. And for the first time, Olivia was in a relationship where she didn't have to hide her struggles or pretend to be okay when she wasn't. Dr. Wheeler, during a biannual follow-up appointment, reviewed Olivia's progress. "You are a remarkable success story, but let me be clear, you will likely need medication long-term, possibly forever, and there will always be a risk of relapse, especially during intense stress or hormonal changes." "Constant vigilance," Olivia nodded. "I understand, and I've accepted that. I'd rather take pills every day for the rest of my life than go back to that dark place." Jennifer organized a small celebration for Olivia's 1.5-year anniversary of active recovery. Margaret flew in from Boston. David and Emma brought Lucas. Kevin and other fellow students from the training program attended. Daniel was there, seamlessly integrating into Olivia's makeshift family. and as everyone toasted, Jennifer gave a speech that left everyone in tears. A year and a half ago, I was terrified I would lose my best friend. Today, I see a woman who turned her biggest nightmare into her greatest mission. Olivia, you didn't just survive, you're thriving, and you're taking so many others with you. Olivia looked around the room, at the people who hadn't given up on her when she'd given up on herself, at the colleagues who understood the language of grief, at the new love that accepted all her parts, including the broken ones. And she realized, rebirth isn't about returning to who you were before. It's about integrating everything you've been through and emerging as someone deeper, more compassionate, more genuinely human. She raised her glass. I'm not going to lie and say I'm grateful for depression. I'm not. It was hell. But I'm grateful for what I learned in the process. I learned that asking for help isn't weakness, it's courage. I learned that bad days don't mean a bad life. I learned that our scars can become bridges for others. And I learned that rock bottom isn't the end of the story. It's just the beginning of a different chapter. At night, alone in her new apartment, Olivia wrote in her new journal, no longer recording pain, but documenting growth. Today marks a year and a half since Jennifer found me in that bathtub. Today, I facilitated 2 groups, helped a client create a safety plan, had lunch with Daniel, and came home to a space that is mine, a space filled with light. I still take my pills, I still go to therapy, I still have hard days, but I'm alive, I'm present, I'm contributing. And for the first time in years, when I think about the future, I don't just see darkness, I see possibilities. She closed her diary and looked out the window at the illuminated city. Chicago glowed under the night sky, millions of lives happening simultaneously, some in joy, some in pain, many somewhere in between. And Olivia knew that somewhere out there was another person lying on a cold floor, convinced there was no way out, unaware that salvation might be just a phone call, a session, an outstretched hand away. Tomorrow she would return to work. She would hear more stories of pain. She would hold more space for tears that needed to be shed. She would witness more struggles that mirrored her own. And she would continue doing what she now knew was her calling, using her own journey through the darkness as a map for others still lost in the shadows. Depression hadn't defeated her. She had survived, and in survival, she had found not just recovery, but rebirth. Not as the person she was before, that Olivia was gone forever, but as someone stronger, wiser, more deeply human. Someone whose cracks let the light shine through, illuminating the path for others who followed behind. Olivia Martinez was alive, really, truly alive, and that she finally understood wasn't just enough, it was everything. If you've made it this far, to the end of Olivia's story, I want you to know that it says a lot about you. Maybe this story touched something personal. Maybe you're going through something similar. Or maybe you know someone who's in that dark place right now. Whatever the reason, your being here matters. If this journey resonated with you in any way, leave a comment below. This message was for me. That's all. It's a way for me to know that this kind of honest conversation about mental health needs to continue happening here. And who knows, maybe your message will be exactly what someone else needed to read today. Also, leave a like, because when you do, you help this story reach someone who's scrolling through their feed right now, feeling invisible, thinking there's no way out. Your click could literally save a life, that's no exaggeration. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, subscribe now. Here we talk about real things, about struggles that many people hide, about stories that need to be told. No filters, no romanticization, just raw truth transformed into tangible hope. There's a video right here that covers exactly this topic. Click and continue with me there. The conversation doesn't end here. And remember, if you're at rock bottom right now, this isn't the end of your story. It's just the darkest chapter. The turning point may be closer than you think. See you in the next video.